Welcome back to the Arguing Agile podcast. Lenar is here today. He is a technical generalist, software developer, and founder at IdleSoft. It's too early to be messing up pronunciations. 10 plus years of experience developing innovative solutions for Fortune 500 companies, enterprises, and startups. He's also the organizer of the Tampa QA meetup, which I think I am a part of, and I've never actually shown up to, so bad on me. And it's a leading community for QA engineers and enthusiasts in the Tampa Bay area. We'd like to welcome Lenar to the podcast.
So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
I'd like to start off with people that are new to the audience. I'd like to start off with a career summary, like if you were to walk into an interview and they say, tell me about yourself, which, by the way, is code for I didn't read your resume.
Exactly.
Sure, yeah. So I started out as a QA intern when I was 20 and didn't really think about or technology as a career at first because the major was slightly different from engineering technology major, but I was kind of got recruited by my friend to work for tech company back in my hometown. And I did my internship. I kind of liked it. And I never left technology since then. When I was 21, I came to the United States and started working for several consulting companies, basically doing manual QA first and then switched up into automation and worked for enterprises, worked for startups. This largest company was number 13 at the Fortune 500 list. So yeah, I was taking a leap from manual QA to that role. Then I had a 1 year when I switched to software engineering proper, doing backend development, but I didn't like it that much, to be honest, and I had to go back to QA engineering. And then I thought I have to do something with my knowledge that I acquired in the past 10 years. And then I started IdleSoft in 2019. Past couple of years were phenomenal for us. And we were growing like crazy. We scaled up to 22 people right now. So it's been going well. We mainly work with local companies from as early as 2 people, 1 people companies up to corporations to 5,000 people. Obviously, eventually when I started, I was mainly doing website design, web development, mobile application development, right? But now we are taking higher challenges for us, doing that cloud migration projects, like rewriting the old code moving from old COBOL code to the more modern technologies and stuff like that. So yeah, our team is remote. We are mixed. We have some people in the US. We have some people all over the world. We have people working from 12 countries right now. And yeah, we came up with our unique system of screening and finding people, where we embed ourselves into the local communities in every country, mainly in these tech towns in every country, right? Think like in Israel, like Tel Aviv, and when you think about like Latin America, there is like Medellin, Sao Paulo, and same thing in Europe, as country of Georgia, for example. So we will be deeply involved in the community, sponsoring many events and finding people for our company to work for. So far so good. Despite the current challenges of the market, we've been growing and signing new clients, starting new projects, and even today, like we have many roles open, and we close like 3-4 roles a month right now, so which is good. I cannot complain. Yeah, I love Tampa. Like I'm a huge fan of Tampa. I love being here. So nice, so warm, so sunny. And previously I spent 5 years in Pittsburgh, and it's a different contrast, definitely.
Awesome. So if they want to check out a little more about your company, what's your website?
IdleSoft.com is the website. Yeah, so we are pretty much well known, I think, in the startup community here in Tampa. But since Tampa startup community is not that big yet, we work with clients all over the States.
There's a whole lot of questions that I want to ask that I didn't think about before we started now about running a company, especially when what a great pitch of don't spin up a team to do all this stuff with legacy. Just break off some money, send it to us. We'll migrate your legacy systems like that. Yeah. That's a great self-contained, focused business idea. There's a million questions I want to ask about the sales and marketing and positioning apparatus for that type of business. I would guess word of mouth and successful migrations would pretty much be the majority of it, but I want to take the whole podcast and talk about that. We're not going to. We need to come back. So you started as an intern, and then you did manual testing, and then you became the SDET type of QA engineering. How did you make that leap? Was this moving around from a different place, getting promotions, or did you stay in one place? How did that leap happen?
If you've done manual QA work before, it gets boring, it gets old, and you really want to start looking somewhere and to upscale yourself, And QA is really good entry point for people from all professions, right? I know people from QA did a leap to project management, product management, DevOps, software engineering, backend, frontend. So it's a good leap, and it happened naturally just to automate myself a little bit. I didn't learn anything from college, right? So obviously some courses on YouTube, Udemy and stuff like that. So you taught yourself how to automate your work so you don't have to spend hours before release clicking every test case. It happened quite naturally, I think, and gladly it worked out because, super frankly, it was paying well more than doing manual testing. So that's why I don't regret it. Company supported it, and good management is always a rare thing to find nowadays. So when management supports you, when company supports you through automating process, it's challenge.
Yeah, so you got me on that one. Like, good management is like looking for a needle in a whole bunch of needles.
Yeah, a haystack of needles.
Welcome to issue number one in most agilists' lives right there. It's like leadership is tough to find in the modern day. And then you jump to software engineering. How did you make the jump? Like, obviously you found out that career was not going to be for you, but how did you get into it? Did you think that like, I started in manual testing and I've just been doing more and more automation, it would just be a tiny leap just to start creating all the software? Or did someone try to talk you into it or offer you a job?
Back in the time, I will say it was my decision, but now I understand that it was mainly influenced from outside, like from people you work with, and they see you taking a step forward and you're like, why I'm not taking a step forward to different directions? And I did that, and I was like, okay, maybe I should try software engineering. I didn't say I failed, but I just didn't enjoy it as much because coming from QA background to do development was kind of not challenging per se, but it's a new thing still. It's a different process, different challenges, different tasks. So yeah, and then I came back eventually to QA engineering anyway. So I was like, okay, this is going well, but do I enjoy it? So it's same thing with the career of being individual contributor, right? So when I came back to QA, I was like, okay, I like being QA also, but do I really enjoy it? Like, this is what I want to do. Maybe I should try something else, And this is how IdleSoft was born, because I was doing solo consulting. I was doing myself only. I will rarely hire some people like to help me out, but I was doing mainly simple tasks like to fix some bugs on the websites. Like from Upwork, I was getting some challenges to do stuff like website design and development. So I got embedded myself into the community, met people, understand their pain points, and offer them solution, right? That's how it's usually done. And that's how I met you guys too. I went to a community event, I met you guys, and now we're sitting here talking about future of Agile.
Yeah. I've told this story. I haven't told it in a long time, like probably 100 episodes, but early in my career, I got picked up right out of college as a QA analyst, which was almost all manual testing. And then there was an element of automation later in that job when I became a lead. I did more automation and a little bit of management. And then I became a manager, and that job was terrible. I feel I was good at it, but it was just a losing. No matter what you did, you were going to lose, no matter what happened. Like, if you mess something up, then you're going to take the blame. But if everything goes right, then somebody else is going to take the
credit.
Yeah, there was no way that you were winning, especially in that role. The QA department for a long time at the one company that I was at for a while, the QA department and development department were looked at as peers until the firm was bought. And then when private equity buys companies, they don't really know what to do. They're like professional managers. And they just shuffled the QA department underneath development because they're like, we don't understand what these people do all day. This is around the time where all those articles were out of like, oh, companies are getting rid of all their QA people and you don't need QA people anymore. And Scrum was hot on the scene where there's just developers in Scrum. There's no QA people, and everyone eats pizza at 7 a.m. and we just party all the time or whatever. None of that is accurate, but that's what people read and take away from it. They look at their bad behaviors and the evidence being presented by things like that, and they just take the one or two things that support their bad behaviors. That was a company. So it's not really fair, but I knew that there was a ceiling as a QA manager, and I had to move to break through it at that company because nobody from QA was ever going to supervise developers. That's just the way the attitude was at that company. So there was nowhere else to go. So I started looking around, and I saw the opportunity for all of the QA analysts to also be the permanent Scrum Masters. I said, no, I'll volunteer to have the QA person also play a dual role of being the Scrum Master. So the QA people were always the Scrum. So basically, my team got to train themselves up in the process, and they understand that like process is nearly as important as all the rest of the stuff in software development. It can really sink you if you have no process, So that I went from that, and I started understanding, well, early in my career, coupling with customers, understanding process, understanding like a systems view of software development and putting all those things together. When I finally got synced up with the Agile community, I started realizing, this community knows about all these things. That sort of led me slowly into product management, and I was like, well, I can talk to customers. I understand how to how to find where the value is and how to test for the value. And then I had technical skill from my time in QA and working on development teams. You have a piece of the journey that I do not have. You transitioned to working with communities, and then now you're running your own company.
Yeah, I think you get to challenge yourself all the time, right? And I think the entrepreneurship is the one thing that gets you challenged in every aspect of your life. For example, I'd never done sales in my life, and now I have to do sales. I never done marketing in my life. Now I have to do marketing. I never done recruiting in my life. Now I have to do recruiting. I have to do content. Have to do like some other stuff. Like it's something that I never learned, and you're learning on mistakes. You're just trying, failing, and reiterating as with Agile, right? So I think the concept of Agile is really, you can apply to every aspect of your life, personal life, your career, entrepreneurship, and everything. Because I'm talking to like, my wife's from a background. I'm talking to her like, hey, do you guys have something like similar to Agile? No. What is that? I'm showing her, okay, we have these dashboards, like we have these points that we're giving, and she's like, this is mind blowing. I should tell my people, like, she'll tell my colleagues about it.
Yeah.
And they were not so excited as her.
When you first decided to make the shift in running your own business, what were some of the key challenges that you ran across right away that you had to work hard and break through?
I think communication is the one thing, because one thing is the business communication internally, right?
Yeah.
When you talk to them, you are in the same boat. But another thing is to understanding what the client wants and what value it can bring to them, and does it actually make money to it? Because it's important, because oftentimes people come to you and say, I want Uber for dog shelters, stuff like that. So I was like, okay, how are you gonna make money? I was like, I don't know yet. And what features do you want? I was like, I want this, I want this. I was like, okay, but what about this? I was like, oh, I never thought about that. So it's working with a client and giving him a good direction and good natural feedback. Like even sharing your honest feedback is important, because a lot of times they learn it. Oftentimes I had to reject some clients. I have to reject some projects because I didn't feel that it will be right fit for both of us, and it saved both of us good sleep next day, next 6 months and next year. Because if there is no fit between me and the project that we're working with and the leads that are coming to us, then it's not going to work. Because I think that's the one thing you have to understand, the pain point. You always think about, okay, what's the value, how much revenue it's going to generate, and what I'm learning from it, So
it's more of a partnership with the client to really understand their journey and explain to them what you see from your perspective, which they may be missing because they're internal. So awesome. That's great.
There's a book called Playing to Win, How Strategy Really Works by the A.G. Lafley, CEO of Procter & Gamble. Oh, and Roger Martin. That's what Lafley and Martin. That's what it's called. Wow, this is the longest book reference ever. Ed he'd tell me, good job. Even I in product management, where I thrash with my leadership is I can choose how to win, but they will choose for me what the playing field is. And I will be very frustrated because I'll say, why would you pick a market that's just jammed? Mm-hmm. Why would you pick a playing field that's completely the opposite of the ideal place? Like in product management, we have ideal customer profile,
of course,
things like that, personas. And I'm like, why would you do that? Because they saw money and they couldn't say no to money.
And then that's part of it. I think that's a big part of it. The other part of it is they'll say, well, because Brian, if you can succeed here, you can succeed anywhere. It's like, but if I fail here, we're off to a non-starter. You can bury me there, right?
Well, if you fail there, it's your fault.
That's right. Of course. And if you succeed there, we take the credit. Exactly.
It's always like a product management triangle, right? Fast,
right,
cheap,
right. Good, right? You have to pick two, because how you measure success,
right?
I think that's important. And also, like I was already mentioning it before, but especially valid for startups, because they don't want to risk the precious, expensive hours of development team for the feature people will not use. And enterprises can take this risk, right? But the one thing that I think, which I was mentioning before, is everyone has to understand that they are in the same boat. Because if they deliver things that don't make money, you might lose your job. I mean, it's a worst case scenario. But this company is not making money and you're making something not useful, the company might lay you off, and that's the least thing you don't want,
As someone who's gone through that experience, it is good to go through that experience, because when I do product discovery activities, when I test something against the market to see if users react that's exactly what I need. There's a few terms that I'm used to hearing from people that I know that this is the right idea. We should take this to development. If I get it's okay. I would use that, or this works for me. Like that's not.
Those are lukewarm.
That's someone being polite to me. And usually I'm not dealing with entrepreneurs or founders of companies, because those people and product managers, those
be
people
brutal.
will tell me, they're like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
I can't use this. I don't have any. There's no value in that was one of the things that you said. The two things you said: communication, but mainly I'm talking about internally. So talking to everyone, getting everyone on the same page. And the other side was value for customers. So the value for customers, like I've learned. The funny part is, after I left QA, after I left the career field, I learned so much more about value to customers, which is sad, because I should have learned a lot of that in the career field. I feel in retrospect, I could have learned a lot about coupling with customers to test things the way that they're using it to become a better tester.
Correct.
But again, under development, none of development's metrics were that way. All the development's metrics were, you have to have this out by this date, because these are the commitments that were promised by someone else choosing where we play, and then development is trying to win on our behalf by just getting stuff out in half the time that it normally would, creating technical debt, all the other things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Those are interesting, because value for clients is one that I heavily invested in learning through my product management part of my career, and the communication side of it is one that I still am learning, right? And I still don't feel like I'm great at. I'm much better than I was. If I compare against myself, fantastic. If I start like looking around at other people, I'm like, ooh, don't do that.
When you think about it, like product manager job and UX designer job, it's also testing, right? It's a testing customer, doing A/B tests on different angles, and doing a proof of concept, and checking if the proof of concept is actually has the highest. It's also testing. So life is constant testing. So for development is constant testing. So QA is a very minor part of the testing. It's actually about testing the functionality of the application, right?
Yeah.
But you have to always test the market too.
And you know, the funny thing is, if I could go back in my career and supervise like myself and the whole QA department early in the career, I would get them involved in that. I would say, okay, you guys are not only going to do manual testing and basic automation, but you're also going to do customer facing interviews and tests. Here's my MVP list of tests that I want to check off before I build something, and you're going to be the main people that do that.
Yeah, and a lot of large companies, that's kind of prohibitive because of the way they're structured. So a lot of the development teams, testers are outsourced, and they don't really ever talk to the customers necessarily. The best that could happen is maybe like at a review, they'll be there and the customer's there, but then developers usually don't say anything. They usually don't say anything because they're afraid. They should be the ones actually talking to customers instead of having intermediaries, with the latency of time saying, well, the customer wants this. I talked to them last week. So you're already losing stuff in translation and not having the ability of the team to ask questions directly to the customer. So yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity miss on the part of development houses.
We learned this hard way because we were like, okay, we're going to provide resources, we're going to help with direction, right? But we didn't own the outcome. That led us to creating our company values. There are several points, but I think the main three is ownership, right? So you own the outcome, whether it's successful or it's a failure, right? So whatever you do, you own the outcome, and whatever decision you make within the company, you back it with the data. I think this is the second point, because we heavily rely on data, but you have to always prove it with proof of concept, with data, with the dashboards, whatever, customer usage, everything, right? And the third thing I think which is just really important for us is in software development, this is not stable job. It's like up and down. Before release or before releasing some important feature, there is production bugs you have to fix, right? Things can get messy and stressful, right? Which we actually encourage you to put extra effort during that period so you can take recharge after this part of the project completed, right?
Yeah.
That's why we have unlimited PTO from day one. So everyone comes to us like, if you want to take a recharge, you want to take the day off for yourself, for your family, for your mental health, you can easily take that. Because that things like we learned, that's how we produce results, which we kind of happy with right now.
Yeah.
Obviously there is a lot of iterations. You have to teach people how to own the outcome. You're like, okay, if you have task assigned to you, you are responsible. Not the scrum master, not the project manager who have to always follow up on you, but you have to be responsible to meet the deadline and deliver it on time and deliver it with the highest quality. Because it's not blaming somebody, it's just taking a leadership, taking ownership of the problem, and then sharing the updates or sharing the progress with the team. After all, quality is everyone's responsibility,
Yeah. Leadership is when you're describing, that's what my brain is translating into, is nobody holds me accountable the way that I take accountability for things. Nobody's harsher on me about my work than me.
Well, if someone's holding you accountable, they hold the power which means they can grant you the power and they can take it away, right? So you are the one accountable to what you're committing to, right? Somebody could say, well, someone else is responsible. That's where this whole, we talk about this often on the podcast, so management versus leadership. So managers are responsible to deliver something, but ultimately the individuals are accountable for their own actions.
Right. I remember early in the QA career, I remember the phrase, who tested this? I remember that. Yeah, who tested this? I remember that phrase. It's because a lot of people that are in a QA role or a tester role, so sometimes the role is called tester, right? But if you're just clicking through screens after it's been sent through to development, you have no influence over the way things get picked up and taken in for work. You have no influence into the way things are developed through the development pipeline. You have no influence into the process of software development. The solution, not just the software, the whole thing is quality, is good. It's built for spec or something like that.
Built as specified rather than built for purpose.
It really does a good job at solving the problem. You're taking all the tools away from that person.
Sure.
And you're not allowing them to get involved earlier when they should be involved. All this stuff goes back to manufacturing, which there were books written about this years ago.
We talked about a lot of this with the podcast with Bob Cruz.
Yeah.
The difference between QA and QC, right? It goes back to really the lean days in manufacturing, right? Where people were empowered to stop the production line. Right. Anyone could do that. Imagine doing that today. They'd be like, who pushed that red button, right? Who stopped the production line? It's costing us thousands every minute it's down. But at the same time, would you rather ship out faulty products that will cost you even more in the long run, right? It's funny how companies and countries that have got this more right than wrong really are thriving when you think about it, right? In manufacturing, also in software. Companies that empower their staff to say, call it as it is as soon as you can, and you're not penalized for that. Like, they're the ones doing well as opposed to others. Like, this has to ship on a certain date, come what may. Yeah. I've seen that happen in many, many companies where management, because true leadership's not around that. Management will say, we have to meet this deadline because, let's face it, it's because their own bonus is on the line for them, right? So, there's no real mystery here, right? We know what needs to be done. We just don't find ourselves out of this smog to be able to come up and do it.
Well, this is also leads to outsourcing the accountability.
Yeah.
It's hierarchy, it starts with the business decision and then comes all the way down to the simple Scrum Master. While QA guy being at the end of the chain, the whole company is going to blame him for
the scapegoat.
It's not okay. Everyone's responsibility, I think, should be quality. So that's how only you have.
The enterprise coaches, the actual, the people at the top of that career field, they're the ones who are coupling with leadership to say, hey, you want to have quality software, but you've got this, your sales team is out there selling with dates first. They promise dates first. And then the team is cutting quality and doing things in an unsustainable way.
Yep.
And all these they're trying to solve all these underlying issues, where the agility coaches are trying to build something that's sustainable and something for the future. And you don't build Toyota quarter to quarter. You have a 20-year plan.
Sure.
And at least you have a 5-year to 5-year plan. I go on diatribes on the podcast and then forget what I was talking about. Communication. I wanted to round back to communication because, again, this is still in my number one slot. Coming from technical teams and now having to be business-facing, representing all the technical teams, is a whole different level of communication needed from me, internal and external. Let's just start with internal, because now I have to pitch and sell ideas to everyone internally. I have to project confidence about what we're doing, because if I don't, the team is not even going to start.
You're going to be the thought leader, absolutely. And you're going to say, this is where we're charting our vision. This is where we need to go. And here's why. Especially if you're in a company where you have a bunch of high-ranking architect types, right? The technical people, but they're like, we know the technology here, right? They'll take the most technical path going forward using the sexiest tools available, because that's what trips them up. So they're sexy tools, right? So when you want to explain to those guys why we're going somewhere and you can be successful, you're getting somewhere. If you just tell them where, you're going to be shut down pretty quickly.
In every large or small, there are 80% of the features, 80% of the project, which is usually built on legacy code, but it's making money. and there is always like 20% of the sexy tools, which is losing money. So this 20% is allocated for experiments. That's why you like do experiments on a smaller scale, and if it's working out, you just expand it to the larger scale. I think it's a great way, because if you think about it, some websites are really old but they are really performing well. Look at the Craigslist. It has the ugliest UX ever.
Forever. Yeah, it's been like that forever.
On purpose.
On purpose, it is ugly. I watched an interview with some of the developers on that. It's on purpose.
Exactly. But it's making money.
I know.
Right.
I know a company, I think the company name is called BuildWith. Basically, it's a Chrome extension tool where you go to a website and they tell you what tools they use to build this. The company is like 2 people, 1 people. They're making like millions in revenue. Simple Chrome extension tool, so really the business is pretty simple. You find the solution that everyone needs, market it in the right target audience, then you charge the money for it. You're happy, So
like, where did you learn that? Did you start small? Did you start like in communities, and then you started like by making mistakes with 1 or 2 people here, and then you grew that? And made
mistakes. I mean, you fail multiple times, because if you only consistently get successful, you don't challenge yourself. You gotta fail.
That is true.
You gotta fail all the time. Gotta fail. You have to hire wrong people, and these wrong people will be having a beef with the client team, and you have to lose client to understand the value of hiring. That's why we like hiring very carefully, because we're taking time. Before we were like, okay, tell me about yourself. Like, oh, I was working there and there. Okay, let's go jump on the project. But now we're becoming bigger and we're working with larger clients. We cannot afford that risk. Last year we were working with a client, and they were super impressed with our developers, and they were like, can you find me the similar people but in the US for a full-time, want to hire them full-time? I was like, sure. So we started our recruiting service that way. We were recruiting people for full-time positions here in the US because they really liked our quality of the people we're working with. They were like, can you do the same here? And for developers, we have multiple ways of screening. We screen for technical skills. We don't do live coding, right? We just send them home task, and then we don't even need like perfect solution for the home task, coding task. We just need to see your thought process. We do culture fit interview, and then only if that goes well, we let them to meet with the client. Because if you headhunting, talent acquisition, recruiting, placement agencies, I think it's pre-COVID era, where you have small city like Tampa, and you have to really find people locally only. You have to steal from one company to another, Right. Now it's a remote culture. You can hire everywhere. Like now you have to really have a huge pool of talent. We once posted a DevOps job, I think last year or beginning of this year, 800 applications in 3 days.
Yep.
And who's going to go through them? And the companies don't have time for it always. And we have to go through them to check them if they're matching the requirements. Use some sort of AI to screen the resumes. And we have this tool we're using internally that gives the score of the resume. It's like, okay, this person is 80% match. This person is 90% match. Right. So that's how you're going to do it. Because after all, consultancy is working with people. You're working with people daily, and people have good mood some days, and they have bad mood. And you better not trigger their bad side.
You know the other funny thing about hiring, that like I hired people for years, so I knew I was able to transfer this skill to other places. And at one place I was at, I interviewed a candidate, and I was like the technical expert interviewer. I don't ask me why they weren't. It's complicated, but they were the hiring manager, and I was the technical expertise. And I interviewed the person, and I was like, man, this person was really like, I don't know if they're not enthused about this job or what it was, but they just came across as real low energy. Like they really weren't like happy to talk or whatever. They kind of just, and the hiring manager was like, wow, really? Like they were completely the opposite of that when I was talking
all
to
the
them.
time to us.
I said, well, I started looking at the schedule of all I looked at the calendars of all the candidates that person interviewed, and then I interviewed immediately after, and it turns out the hiring manager would interview them first thing in the morning. I would interview them at like 3:30 or 4 p.m. at the end of the day.
It's the worst time.
I was like, come on, guys. Come on. You're sending people to me after they're drained out from working a full day of work and trying to do an interview at the end of their work day.
It's a slump time right there. So the research proves that even in medicine, don't go see a doctor in the afternoon around 3 o'clock, because there's bigger chance of them making errors. Go see them first thing in the morning.
So the economy was booming, and they will fly in people from across the world to the on-site for the 4 hours interview with the team. And they will do 1 hour lead code on the white paper, on the whiteboard, and they will do like a culture feed. HR will ask questions like, what will you do in this situation? What color do you like? And people at the 4 hours after, they will be drained, literally. And that was crazy. But the company should want to take this risk, because there was a shortage of developers and the economy was booming. There was really hard to find good people who will be willing to move to these expensive areas where these fan companies are located, right? And they will just fly in. They will be cheaper. Whatever, you spend $1,000 in person for interview.
Yeah,
it's all right.
Those guys are also playing by a completely different playbook.
Of course,
than the rest of the world. Like those guys, I mean, they seriously overhired during COVID because they were afraid that the competitors would hire all of the good talent. So they just hired people that basically had no job for them. They come to work and be like, "What are you doing today?" "I don't know. I'm going to get lunch all day." We watched those TikToks. I watched a bunch of TikToks of people like this during that era.
Working 2 jobs, 3 jobs.
People in their 20s, a product manager at a fan company, and I'm like, I worked on development teams for more than 10 years before I became a product manager. So I had a good understanding of software architecture and the process of software development and how the business needs to interact with software development and how to vet, again, quote, requirements, right? How to find the value. I don't know how you do that with no experience as your first job straight out of college. I don't understand it.
Those someone by themselves. If you've spent a fortune on your MBA, you got to monetize it somehow. I like the angle you had on embracing to fail, right? Because if you're learning from that, you're not failing. Yeah. So for me, the FAIL is really just an acronym that's fast attempts in learning, right? Yeah. If you're learning quickly and failing quickly, that's the fail I want. I don't want the fail where you do it and you go, well, it didn't work that time, maybe it'll work again. That's insanity because you're just repeating the same mistake, right?
Yeah. It just also gives you boost, like in your career, in your like business, whatever. Like if you fail, you're like, I'm better than this.
Those are the people that are learning and moving ahead. I mean, that's the problem with getting stuck in a very large organization where everyone's trying to play a game of deflecting blame and doing that. They're basically failing to learn at that point.
That's right.
That's what's scary about those cultures. But
they could retire there if they want. I could retire at a large company, starts with I, ends in M. You couldn't get fired and has one letter in between. You couldn't get fired for buying from them, right? But you were in a box. A year later, I'm like, I'm not growing here. I'm bored. So I left.
If you're bored, try to take a challenge, take ownership, because I didn't want to go to management, for example. You went to management because it was a challenge for you.
That was the only way up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was the only way up. It was either that or transfer out of QA, and I didn't want to do that at that point in time in my career because I had hired the whole team, so I didn't want to leave my team. I mean, in retrospect, maybe I would do, if I could do it again, maybe I would take different career paths to get to where I am now faster, right? And even the younger generation are doing that left and right. I mean, they don't. The younger you are, the less time you stay in a job.
These days they flip every 18 months.
Yeah, the culture's changing, which I'm fine with.
Yeah, it's good.
Don't care.
I think it kind of stopped. Like before, it was like really. I was talking about like companies stealing from employee from one another, and people were jumping from one work to another work every 2 years. Now I think it's happening less. People just want stability, especially in this market.
Yeah, that's true.
People don't want to switch jobs because I've seen so many stories where people were getting offers for say 20% upper salary, and they will say, "I'm leaving in 2 weeks." They will give a notice, and then before the start date, the offer get rejected because the budget didn't get approved.
Right.
Happening all the time. So people are kind of staying low right now.
This is cyclical, right? We saw this during the boom days of the internet. Where VC money was ripe and people will flip jobs every 3 months, right? Yeah. And then the bubble burst.
You know. If it's going to get back to normal eventually?
I don't know. I think this is going to keep repeating, honestly. I think it's a cycle.
Well, that's why I was keep saying, like, when internet was invented, people were like freaking out. Okay, internet's going to take my job now. You know, people were like,
AI is going to take my job now.
Yeah, for example, if you are working at the office taking phone calls, and I was like, okay, this internet is going to make things easier because people are just going to book online. But you go to dental office, there's still people sitting there taking phone calls,
Sure.
And same thing with cloud computing. There were like people who are managing the physical servers, like physical infrastructure. They were like, okay, this cloud's going to take my job. It didn't actually. It actually created more jobs for people who can manage the cloud and who can sell the cloud. It will create multiple companies on this industry. And same thing is going to happen with AI.
Well, we've seen a precursor of that, though, right? So when robotics came around the first time, people were scared, well, robots are going to take our jobs, and it didn't really happen. There's still manufacturing jobs out there.
Everything's there. Same thing with AI will happen. AI will eventually take someone else's job. That's true, but actually will create more jobs. So you have to be adaptive to stay relevant in the market.
I would love for the robot to take my job. Hey, you're hired, robot. Take my job. Take all my jobs, especially all the manual labor jobs that I do in my spare time. You can take all of those.
But in order to do AI to the job, you have to give them clear requirements, and no clients has that. No clients have that.
I don't see that changing.
Don't know what to do.
Yeah, I don't see that changing.
Speaking of the future, I'm interested to know what your opinion about the future of QA, the career field, QA the role, but what is the future like? With the salt and pepper of AI on top of it.
There are QA AI tools out there. They will not be as common as Selenium, for example, right?
Yeah.
Because Selenium is
Everywhere.
And right now even Selenium is actually losing battle against Playwright.
Right,
Playwright
yeah.
is a tool
Right.
implemented by Microsoft, right? It's free.
We use Playwright. I don't know if I'll leave that in the podcast, but my engineers, I said nothing to them. Because again, I used to, Java and Selenium used to be in my stack.
Yeah.
And I said nothing to them when they were like, well, you know what? We need to automate this testing. This is a pain, and we don't have any budget to hire somebody, so we need to automate this testing. And they landed on Playwright. I was like, good job.
It's actually a really good tool.
Yeah.
I'm quite surprised. We did some couple projects on Playwright,
Yeah.
and I was quite impressed with the
Yeah, it's
capabilities.
pretty easy too, yeah.
It's free to set up. So yeah, I think eventually, so manual QA jobs still will be there, in my opinion, but there will be less of them. Ideal combination for Scrum teams will be one QA, one manual QA, one automation, or SOC generalists who can do both manual and automation.
Right, yeah.
So I think the ideal scenario will be like this. There will not be teams with only manual QAs eventually, because company has to grow into it,
Yeah.
But I think eventually there will be some AI involvement for sure, more automation. QA role will be more involved with infrastructure work, setting up the CI/CD pipelines, making sure that the lower environments are healthy, and checking the logs, and dealing with creating new testing environment and tearing them down on daily basis so they don't consume so much cloud credits. So I think eventually this is going to happen. Yeah, because it's been happening already, but I think this is what we expect from our quality assurance team also, like to have some understanding of automation.
What about performance testing, stress testing, load testing? Those kinds of things lend themselves to
Penetration testing.
AI. Using the same people, perhaps they just these skills, so you don't have these individual roles necessarily. So you don't have a manual tester, an automation tester, a performance tester, right? Maybe one person could do it all, depending on what's needed on a day, right? They can flex. That's what I see going forward.
Yeah, there's all types of testing, as I mentioned, right? You mentioned the performance testing, load testing, functional testing, API testing. For the sake of saving money, companies will push QA engineers to learn all these skills themselves and just to stay them relevant. And for QA engineers, same thing. If you want to get a job, diversify your skills.
I hope that somewhere sprinkled in there, there's also this cognizance about the process, about being involved earlier, bringing your QA people in earlier, and having them have some kind of, maybe not say over the system, the quote system, but what we try to do as Scrum Masters, where, a Scrum Master is supposed to be able to coach the team, but they're also supposed to be able to coach up into the organization.
Correct.
To try to deal with some of those systemic problems in the organization that are affecting your software development and the quality of your software, basically.
Right.
It'd be nice if some of that crept into the QA career field permanently.
But what's the extra measures that Scrum Master can take if team is not coachable? Team just can ignore your request, and it's like, okay, yes, I understood. And
they need to be empowered to do their job.
What measures can you take to?
Yeah, it's difficult. It is difficult because typical Scrum Masters on a team level aren't really empowered to coach up in the organization, but they're supposed to. It's kind of hard, right? Because they have no pull. I mean, the minute they go outside of the team, no power, right? Yeah, so then leadership's going to say, well, stay in your lane, right? Stay with your team. You're a Scrum Master for that team. Yeah. Stay there. It's like, come on.
I think we've discovered great topic for podcast number 3, Lenar. Like, you can come back a third time. So I want to talk about the marketing and sales apparatus. I want to talk about promotion.
The final question I have is, what advice would you give your younger self, let's say 10 years ago? How would you have done things differently?
I would say it's a good question. I often think about myself too. I think the one advice I can give myself, take a risk when you're younger.
Awesome.
You have nothing to lose. Come on, take a risk, do new stuff, explore new stuff, try new stuff, try new professions, try living in different cities, like meet new people, get out of your comfort zone and just try new things. That's the only advice you can give to 20 years old, because that's the only way you can find your passion, you can find your path in your career, and that's the only way you can try being successful, like whether it's a career success or whether it's entrepreneurship or family success. You have to try different things, see what's working out. It's great. If you're happy, why not to keep it as a full-time career, right? Because I don't come from technical background, but I enjoyed the field. I stayed there.
Awesome. Great response. Thank you. All right. Well, I think that's it for all 6 of you that are still with us. Thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe down below, and let us know other topics you'd like us to discuss. We'd be happy to consider them at least.
All right. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Yeah, and thank you.
It was great to be here.
Yeah, thank you.